Hello, horse. That's in the movie, Bartek. Hello, horse.
Oh, fuck, what was the response?
They just kept saying hello, horse.
Hello, horse.
And then, whoa!
I do remember when we first watched this. Hi, Ryan, by the way.
Hello, horse.
I do remember when we first watched it, we had something about the horse that kept coming up.
Hello, horse,
Hello,
and the
horse.
thumbs up weird gesture. Bartek, we're back again to do our podcast where we say hello, horse, over and over again and try and figure out details of the movie we just watched. That's the podcast. We don't do anything else.
What's it called?
Hello, horse, the podcast. But in the Polish language, it's translated to Spit and Polish Presents, likingly because we're always spitting and we both happen to be Polish. How can people tell you're Polish? Has anyone ever seen you and just went, oh, you're Polish?
I don't know if anyone's visually ever identified me as Polish.
Not other Poles?
I mean,
Because-
if I'm in Poland, they might see me as a white person in Poland and think, oh, you're one of us.
Thank you, Bartek. But I ask because sometimes I get spotted as when I'm in random locations and people ask me random questions about my background. And
You
I'm
could
like,
have been a Jew, right?
Can I talk about that? I was recently out in the city and I went to a friend's place and they live in a largely Jewish populated suburb. But it reminded me of this one time I was waiting for a tram and a gaggle of rabbis walked past me and one of the younger ones stopped, turned around and asked me if I'm Jewish because I had long curly hair. And I said, no, I'm Polish actually. And then he tottered, walked off a few steps, turned around, pointed and said, Polish? You could still be a Jew, and then walked off.
Oh,
And I'm like,
The last time you told us story in the podcast, it was you could have been a Jew.
oh, you could have been a Jew. And then he walked off. And I never saw him again. But I think about that interaction a lot. But we're actually here to talk about a movie that came recommended, and I recommended a film for us to discuss.
That's
but
true.
we're not doing it alone. We're joined by a person, somebody who's been we've been waiting for to come on the pod. Somebody who will regularly tweet out, hey, you want me on a podcast? Just ask me on. And then I do, and then they don't respond. But we finally dragged him on here. He needs no defending this time from you. It's Sean from the last Best Babylon 5 podcast and a multitude of other places. Hello, Sean Rose.
Hello. It's me. It's Sean. Is this thing on? Is this working? Everyone can hear me. I'm on the air, correct?
Yeah. Is he on?
It's good.
Is he?
Fantastic. I'm on.
Sean, you're so
folks,
good at turning me on. Thank you.
That's a
quite
show from
good.
his country.
Yeah.
At turning me on. Thank you so much for having me on. This is very, very excited to be on. Excited to talk about this this kooky movie. That's the word I would use. I feel like I won't jump into it too much yet, but it's sometimes it's good. You want to watch a movie that's just a little kooky,
Yep.
and just kind of a good time. And you know what I mean? That's what this is all about.
I
So very
totally know. That's why I
excited to be
recommended
here and
it.
talk about it. Absolutely.
Hi everyone, I recommended another Czech film. I every so often grab a movie from Czechoslovakia when it was Czechoslovakia. Very much so the kooky variety from that nation, and we have thus far covered the same director and creative team, Ulrich Lipsky, if I'm
Mhm.
not mistaken.
Yep.
And so we've done Lemonade Joe and Dinner for Adele, or Adela Has Not Had Her Supper Yet. That one has multiple titles.
Yeah.
And today we're looking at I Killed Einstein, gentlemen. And Sean, you are joining us, but could you please tell us a bit about yourself and what you do in your podcasts and the stuff that you get up to?
Sure. So podcast-wise, I am one of the hosts of the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast. I do that show with my good friends Ben and Steve. Ben has seen Babylon 5 before, but Steve and I are watching through it for the first time. We're having a lot of fun. We are getting close to the end of the 4th season now, so we're almost done, which feels crazy. But we are. It's been a while. It's been a couple years since we started, so it's crazy that we're almost getting there. But yeah, we're having a really good time. And I also I have another show I host that we're gonna do some new episodes of called The Hornet's Nest, which is where I play the host of a classic rock radio show who is also a former supervillain. And it's basically just, it is the radio show that you're listening to, and we have callers and all that, and that's a lot of fun. And yeah, and I'm a cartoonist also. I do a lot of comics. I do a comic called Red Ring of Death, which
I
is
love
like a parody
Red Ring of Death.
of
Red Ring of
thank you.
Death is so funny.
It's a lot of fun. It is a parody of gaming comics from the mid 2000s, and I'm embodying a character named Sean Tuckley, who is like the cartoonist of it, and he's just a very bad man. So that's really all it is.
Bartek, just so you know, the artwork is what Sean described, a mid 2000s gamer style, which is to say gross. It's just
we're talking about like webcomic?
Yeah.
Yes. It's a comic I'm doing. It is often, at least, especially lately, it has gotten even more perverted and weird. Only because I'm really just making it to make myself laugh, and that's just what makes
that's the
laugh.
way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
Just things that are uncomfortably horny and reveal something sinister about the author making it.
Yep.
So that's the goal. That is my bag. I love that stuff. So that's the road I'm going down. But yeah. So a lot of irons in the fire. And also I watch anime a lot and watch a lot of movies and
And so we got you here
stuff
to talk about a movie. No anime today, but maybe in the future for you if you come back on. You requested a weird movie. You're like, I want to do, if you bring me on, I want to do something weird and I haven't seen before. And I looked at my Czechoslovakian list and went, boy, oh boy, which one will it be?
You picked a good one. This was exactly the vibe I was looking for. Just something where I can kind of lay back and just be like, huh, oh, all right.
Like, you wanted something weird, Ryan's like, okay, which Ulrich Lipsky film do we go with?
Well, there are some other Czech movies on my list that I think Sean will enjoy very much. There's this one called Here Comes the Cat, which I haven't watched, but it's on YouTube for free, where the pitch of the movie is a weird... Sorry, a weird cat comes to town and it's wearing some glasses, and this woman that's the bitch. And this woman puts on the glasses, and it shows her people in different colors, and that that distinguishes what their mood is or like what their personality is. It is amazing, and it's a very high rated.
Is that
movie.
Animated? Is that live action?
No, it's a live action. Oh, buddy, it's a live action movie.
Oh,
but,
all right.
We are talking
Drop
about
that link to me. There's no way I'm not.
I've got to check. I got a Czechoslovakian list on YouTube.
God, the Czechs are just the best, aren't they?
There's another one that actually relates to I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen. The lead actor, the scientist character, he's in another movie called Tomorrow I'll Wake Up and Scold Myself with Tea, which is a time travel movie in which he actually goes back in time to help Hitler win the war. So
I read about that in trivia, yeah.
Yeah. But
it's like this film, he wants to kill Hitler. This other film, he wants him to win.
And I've watched that one with my wife, and it was very, very funny. And all I'll say is that movie's on YouTube as well. People check that out because just the opening credits, all I'll say is about the opening credits is YouTube poops have an origin from cinema, and it's this movie. That's all I'll say.
That sounds wonderful.
But
I would love to watch a 70s Czechoslovakian YouTube poop.
Oh, yes, with Hitler. So, I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen is the film of discussion today, and Bartek and I, we have seen this movie before. We watched it together. This is from 1970. I don't know if you actually have the Czech name up by any chance, Bartek. Do you know how to say it?
Yeah, much like a lot of Czech, this is like every single word is similar to Polish, but slightly different. So it's Zabil jsem Einsteina panowie, which is very similar to, I guess in Polish, would be like Zabiłem się Einsteina panowie.
Okay.
Which, if the two of you heard me say those two titles and they sounded the exact same, they weren't, but they were very similar.
I heard some slight differences.
Close.
Panowie.
Yeah, a little bit. I could notice a tiny bit, yes.
A tiny difference. Now, we both have seen this. We both very much enjoyed this. We watched this with my wife, and our friend Will, I do believe, was there as well.
I know it was with a small group, but I can't remember who was there.
And we had good giggles, and it was a very exhilarating time, and I remember personally being surprised with how much of a sci-fi angle this took, because we had watched other from this director, and a lot of them were genre pieces, but not science fiction. Mainly like westerns and murder mysteries.
Ace detective kind of thing.
And there was always a little bit of sci-fi in there, like with Dinner for Adele, the guy grabs out like a laser gun, but it's a solar rifle because it's solar powered.
And of course it's a giant planned movie.
And it's a monster movie too, but like this was such a delight to see that it was just full on science fiction, just here we go, here's a time travel story. And so whenever I recall this one in my brain, I always just have a smile because it ventured into an avenue that I particularly enjoy in movies, and did so in a way that I haven't seen a lot of other sci-fi like time travel stories do it. It's about the presentation more so than the nitty-gritty details, because there's a lot of the time travel-y stuff that we've seen many times before, but the way that they do it, mixing it with the comedy, has lingered with me. And that final scene is probably the scene I've thought about the most when it comes to this. When we get to the ending of it, that one just haunted me. I found it very compelling and very good. But Bartek, for you, anything about this movie that's lingered? It's been a year or so since we've watched it.
Yeah, we watched it sometime last year. It's not one of my favorites that we've watched in terms of like the Czech catalog that we've done. But it's an amusing film. It's not quite as extreme as some of the other ones that we listed earlier, but it was a good time. Definitely had a lot of creativity in terms of its aesthetic, like the sci-fi stuff. I'm not as into it as you are, the sci-fi. But yeah, very funny the way some of it works. Like when he's doing like the jetpack thing, which is like these two weird like fiery sticks. It's like, oh, I guess that's how it works.
They're guns with sparklers on the end.
But it still had all those like little Czech things that we like. These little lines of like snarkiness, kind of self-awareness at times,
mean-spiritedness,
sort of a weird. I was going to say wholesomeness, and I'm kind of confident in saying that, but kind of not.
No, I agree. There's that too. And of course...
It just really loves itself.
A bunch of actors we've seen in a bunch of these other movies, and here they are yucking it up again, but in different ways.
That's another kind of small point against, like, our favourite actor is in this film, but it's like the smallest role we've ever seen him in.
In the movie Lemonade Joe, which we've covered, the best character in it is the villain, and he is in this movie, the actor is in this movie as like the husband of the rich lady, the guy who just keeps coming in at the very end of the party.
Yeah.
And he's one of the great Czechoslovakian actors as well, we've learned. And so we were disappointed because we saw his name in this and went, oh, he's going to be the villain.
Not even that, the entire film we were just like, oh, when's he going to show up? And like every single new scene, it was like, maybe this is the one.
And, he's still fun in this.
He's still very fun.
He has a great line about, did this person kill herself in their bathroom? And then he's like, it's just a cut.
It's like, hey, don't break that glass. It costs money.
Did you know it costs money? Now, Sean, you are a particular enjoyer of weird media, weird shows and movies and music and all this stuff. Every time I've interacted with you or followed you, you're always engaging in something. If you ever look at Sean's letterbox, it's a watch list of fucking weird shit and or having just watched weird shit. And the weirdest stuff is when Sean will occasionally watch a normal movie. Like it will just be like, he's Finding Jesus 2, and then here's a normal movie. And it'll be like, Sean, what's going on? You're watching normal shit.
I will say, sometimes if you see some especially dark shit that I watch on like a Saturday night, it is particularly because I have a group of friends that I will watch it. We started doing this when the pandemic started. We started doing like a bad movie night, kind of quote unquote, because they're not always necessarily bad. But like basically that's kind of how it started. Like we would just kind of pop in on Discord together and kind of just like somebody would stream a movie and we just kind of watch it together and just have a good time. And we've just, we just have continued to do that because it's just fun. And so, but basically like it's kind of more turned into usually bad, but sometimes just strange. Like sometimes it is really just like just something that will take you to kind of a weird place. Mm-hmm. And usually after we finish watching the first, like the kind of the main movie that we start with, then I have a friend of my friend Grayson who runs it, this thing. I always tell him like, give me the weirdest shit you've got. Like I want to see something really, really weird. And so you'll see things in my letterbox that are like, literally it's like one of them is like a potty training guide like on YouTube. Like it's just weird nightmares, and I'm just like, yes, this is what like things where like people will just like kind of start to log off of Discord when it starts playing, and I'm just like, yeah, this is what I want.
This is what you want.
So
now.
yeah, so that's why you'll see like, you know, How Do I Potty next to just a normal film.
Yeah, next to Raging Bull.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sean, could you tell everyone out there listening a bit about I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen? How would you summarize the plot? If you had to pitch this to somebody, to one of your Discord people perhaps, what would you say this what would you say this is about?
I would say it's kind of a strange but a fun but weird take on just like a time travel comedy, basically. Like the whole premise with like a very strange kind of like sci-fi framing device to it. Like you said, it has that kind of sci-fi element to it. The basic plot, I'll try to sum it up best I can. This movie really right from the jump, like when it starts off, it really like throws a lot of like intense imagery at you right up top, and it's like, wow, we're in for something here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, basically, what like they're refresh my memory on this. They're going back and they need to go back in time. What year is it supposed to take place?
1993.
It's 1993.
It's the year we were born.
Don't you remember the opening credits where it showed you each year clocking down until we reached 19?
I did remember that, but I forgot what year it started with. But I did like that. I really liked that opening credits.
That's how we found out what year it was.
Yeah, I did like I thought that was really neat. But it was like, yeah, it's like, yeah, well, they anticipated some things, but not grunge. Grunge was missing.
Well, thanks to physics, there was no grunge.
Yeah, thanks to yeah. But basically, there was an epidemic of women growing beards, I believe.
Yes.
is the problem.
It was because of was it G-bomb?
Yes, G-bomb, which
G-bomb?
is an extension of physics.
Yes.
So a bunch of terrorists have been releasing G-bombs, which is fucking up with women's physiology.
Yes, and that has something to do with, and because it's physics, they decide we're going to take a time machine and go back to 1911. And specifically, we're gonna go back and kill Einstein. But specifically, and this is where it gets interesting, specifically in the year 1911, because apparently, in Prague, because apparently in 1911 movie. There was something where like Einstein almost died from a chandelier falling on him.
Yes,
that missed, and so they're like, we're gonna try to kill him in the most like inconspicuous way, where we're just going to manipulate it so that the chandelier does fall on him.
Yeah, he was like at a party on this very specific day where a chandelier fell.
And their whole reason too is, we aren't trying to mess with fate too much. We'll just mess with it for a couple of seconds, and that should be enough. That's the logic.
And so like obviously it makes it easier so they can kind of blend in a little bit more, and they're not, they don't have to pull a gun out and shoot the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that all, to put it lightly, the plan falls apart pretty quickly, and things get wacky, is the best way I could say it.
That is the best way to put it. Now, having to rewatch this, I forgot so many great details, and so it was a joy to laugh at them as hard as I did the first time. I can't believe I forgot about the cat being a spy. I forgot about
really? That was cute.
For some reason, I remembered all the other cat details. Like I remembered the cat always clawing its way.
That was like the main thing I remembered. It was like, oh, Ryan, this is the one film where you love the cat and you were
but
ecstatic that it like had a point.
I know, but I forgot for some reason because all the other things are so magnetic, like the jetpack with the two guns that shoot sparklers, and Einstein becoming a violinist, and like the chandelier ending, and like the the seat with all the glue on it, and like there's just so much stuff in here, and that's the thing about Ulrich Lipsky movies is, they're jam-packed with gags. It's gag after gag after gag, background gags right up front, old school gags that are way ahead of their time. There's just so many jokes upon jokes upon jokes that they don't need to put in there, but the fact that they do makes the rewatchability of it so much higher and just so much more like needed. And so because there's just so much to take in. And so, yeah, I forgot about the little cat gag, because there was also the thing I remembered about the cat was that this is a real cat that's just on their back while they're in the scenes, and it's clawing in his suit jacket.
I was worried about the cat. I was like, oh, I hope the cat's okay. And the cat's kind of just hanging on. Yeah. They're going through them with them in time, and then they lost the cat, and I was like, oh no. No. And then when they revealed that the cat was the spy, I'm like, oh, that's so cute.
It always screams when I get its eye, and then you hear its little scream.
That was so funny. I really liked when he was just like, well, who could be? We're like, nobody else could have been the spy. And then the guy talks to the cat, and he's like, oh, he thinks that you couldn't have been the spy. Isn't that insulting? He's insulting you. And it's like, oh, that's
By the way,
funny.
guys, the cat's called Cleopatra, so maybe use its
Cleopatra, yes. That's also a very cute cat name.
But I enjoyed this on the rewatch. I got some good belly laughs. Some of the gags I remembered still landed, like the horse gag where the horses are just still riding around in the street and no one stopped them.
Yeah, because they're just like, I don't know how to stop them.
And, that's right, we say whoa, and then a person walks by and gets insulted that they did that to them. They thought that was so many wonderful things. Now, Bartek, for you, this is also a revisit. You said this wasn't one of your particular favorites out of the Czech films we've watched, but how did it hold up on this watch for you overall?
It held up fine. It wasn't as fun as the first time, didn't have, a group with us, but, it still had all the amusing things in it. There were a lot of details that I'd forgotten, so I got a little bit of fun out of those. This was one where I didn't remember too much of the nitty gritty stuff. I remembered little bits here and there. But how do we get to that? Oh, I forgot about this. I was also recalling things we were saying while we were watching the film. I think there was a point where I'm like, oh, Ryan stepped out of the room at this point. He hasn't seen this part. Yeah, things like that.
Well, Sean, I gave you this. The title is very arresting in itself of I Killed Einstein, gentlemen. Yes. And I told you it was a Czech film. Now, are you that familiar with Czech or Czechoslovakian films? Have you consumed any? Are you aware of their kind of zany legacy by any chance?
Not quite as much. It's something that I would like to dip my toes in a little bit more, especially after watching this, where it's just kind of like, this is a lot of fun and very very strange and very kind of compelling to watch. I did watch there is a Czech movie I watched not too long ago that was I don't know that if you guys have seen it, the Cremator. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen
it. It's and this is a much darker movie. It's great, it's amazing. It's from 1969, but it's basically about it's basically just about a guy in a guy who runs a crematorium in World War II, who is basically you kind of see him becoming kind of Nazism is on the rise, and you kind of see him becoming kind of entranced with it and kind of pulled into it. It's very, very grim, but it's amazing. It's an amazing movie. I would strongly recommend it, but it's tough.
We haven't watched a dramatic Czech film, really. We've been mainly just living in the comedy landscape.
Yeah, I've literally.
It does have. I would say that this has comedic elements to it. You could almost call it a dark comedy in some parts of it. But it's very, very, in that Czech way where it's it's treating kind of a serious subject matter with there is some levity. But it is, it's rough. But it's great.
I was going to say, I've literally only seen films by this director, so I can't really say anything about Czech films in general.
Yeah, and this is one of the few where it doesn't have a musical number in it, really. Usually his movies have a musical...
Well, it has a strip scene.
Yeah, but that's not just there's no singing in it.
That was...
I know, yeah.
that was just that scene was oh, okay.
Sean's perversion was really happy during that scene.
It's oh, great. More for
really good too.
But Sean, what did you think of this overall? What was your overall experience watching it as well, knowing very little about it other than the title and country?
I thought I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a good time. It was I don't want to necessarily say it was lightweight, because there was a lot of, there was a lot to it. It was really interesting. But I would say that the tone was lightweight. It was very it was very very much more in the comedic vein. And I thought it was fun. Like basically, whenever I had any scene where it was like in the far future of 1993. It was very very weird. It was just like, wow, this is like it was but like charming in that kind of like 60s 70s sci-fi sort of way, where it's like the sets are kind of like very stagey, and the idea of the future is kind of just very kind of like goofy and funny looking, but fun. Like it was a good time. I appreciated even like the darker elements of it are treated with such like the fact that like they have a whole thing where one of the scientists they're going with, or he's the professor, Peck, was his name, that it's like he just, they accidentally kill his dad as a child and he just disappears, and they're just like, ah, crap. Like they're like, he doesn't exist anymore because we killed his dad. Like this horrible thing has happened, and they're just like, oh, for God's sake. And they have to like it's just like treated as like an annoyance more than anything. Stuff like that. Like that's very much the tone of this thing. But no, it was fun. I had a really good time with it. It was I did not really know after a certain point where it was going to go, and I love watching stuff like that where I'm just like, this can go in a bunch of different directions and I don't even really know where it's going to go. So I love stuff like that.
It has a fun pitch to it. When you get past like the bizarreness of the future where women have beards and men are feeling weird about that and emasculated about it, and all the women are like on strike and they're refusing to shave their beards, and you get past that, and you have that fucking freak who comes up with like the deep cut razor, and he accidentally shaves half the hair off. Oh yeah,
that weird guy. Yeah.
That weird guy doesn't narrow it down, Sean. There's so many weird guys.
I know, there's a lot of weird guys. The weird guy at the beginning of the movie.
If you were to say, oh, the normal guy from this film, who would it be?
The lead.
That's a good point, actually.
I guess Einstein was pretty normal.
Yeah, but he was also like a little freak.
He had a good laugh.
He was a little freak. He had a weird laugh.
But when you get to the pitch of, okay, the world is fucked, we can't escape the fate we're in, and we've determined that is because of this specific strand of science. So let's go to the beginning of that, where it was more on the periphery of science, and kill or stop the one of the founders of it,
one of the iconic physics people,
Killed Einstein, and hope that history will write itself in a way where things are okay. Like, they don't even consider how World War II will pan out or anything like that. They're just very much on the guttural approach of, this will solve the crisis we have now. And so you guys, the inventor of the machine, the guy who figured out the science behind the machine, and you, the historian, will go back in time and do this. All of them are fine with murdering a guy.
Because he's already been dead.
Yeah. He's already been dead, but then that changes once they go back in time. Obviously, the historian lady falls in love, and the guy that Sean mentioned, one of them gets erased from time, and our main character, this is something I didn't appreciate as much on the first watch, but I appreciate it more on this one, is the main character progressively becomes more evil as the movie goes along. Like, at the beginning, he's straight-laced, but he seems like a good guy who wants to do the right thing, and he looks at things in a very distant fashion. But as things progress, he becomes more and more gung-ho about like being nasty and screwing over others and killing a guy, and just the morals of the character deteriorate as we go along. And then by the end of the movie, when he's succeeded at what he thought he has done, he's almost trapped in like a moral decay, and he's left in this weird void of life where now he's a savior of the world, but it means nothing because time is still like this harsh mistress that wants to keep rewriting things so that humanity at this point in the future is fucked no matter what. And so I thought that was just something that like we talk about all the comedy, but when we look at it through the I guess the more dramatic or serious lens, they still have like that skeleton underneath all of the funny stuff that is really what I appreciate about these Czech movies is they can go wacky, they can go over the top, but you can tell that the creative team have a deep understanding of the story and the genre they're playing in. Because you could easily do this movie without all of the silly comedy and it would still be pretty good. Like the filmmaking I've always commended about Ulrich Lipski's stuff. He shoots things in a genuine manner. It's not lazy. There's inventive shots here, crisp cinematography. The lighting is always gorgeous in these movies. The music, oh my, the music is always a delight, but here it is up to 11. I just have always admired with these types of movies the balance that you have, because you can have those ones where it's all gimmick of all just this is silly, it's over the top, like there's a difference between Garth Marenghi's Dark Place and something like I can't remember, like there's that YouTube, it became like a YouTube sensation where it's like a kung fu movie, like 30 minutes short on YouTube, where it's basically like everything's the 80s and it's about a guy who travels back in time to fight a Nazi dinosaur. It's like there's a difference of how you do those two things, because Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, for instance, is very funny, it's very over the top, but it knows exactly what it's riffing on. And that's what I feel with...
I love Dark Place so much.
I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen. It really knows these time travel things well and still has fun with it. That's always the key to me. It's not lazy. It's really thought out. They know their rules. They're going to stick to their rules. And they still have a message. Like, when they come back after thinking they've killed Einstein and the world is still fucked, but now it's in the opposite direction and chemistry is the new villain. I mean, that is just the perfect masterstroke of writing, because it could have just been so simple to just have it that he wins and everything's back to normal and huzzah. Now, for you, Bartek, what were some of the elements that stood out to you in this?
This time, something that stood out... honestly, the future set, I mainly remembered the room where the first time travel happened, like the red room with the weird like diagonal stairs. But there's a scene in, I think it's like a bedroom where they're on this gigantic bed that has all these like different slopes on it all throughout, and it's like, I don't remember this bed. What's going on here? It's like an interpretation of the future, because like the film's set 23 years after this movie was made, so it's like, oh, this is sort of wacky thing going on here. So that was a lot of fun.
That's when he's explaining the time travel, like the timeline separation to her, and he's drawing on her leg with lipstick, and she's moaning in pleasure about it.
That I remembered, and also the fact that later on she tries to like show someone and like, oh, I already bathed. But yeah, there's even a point where I think it's when they come back to their present, it's the final timeline where they acknowledge like, oh man, everything's so different because of the past, and I think the main character just like brushes it off like, yes, we changed the past, so things will change like that. And it's just like, yeah, that's true. That's like, that's what you were saying about like the confidence in its rules.
Yeah, and I know for you're a big fan of the guy who plays the policeman, the big fat policeman that does the silly faces. He's always one of those actors in these movies that every time we see him, we smile, because
honestly, all the policemen in this film kind of nailed it.
Oh, the policemen! I love the first one, the one that the guy gets off the side of the street because they're talking about killing a guy called Adolf Hitler, and the guy's thinking that they're planning a murder.
That was great.
He's like, we heard that you want to kill some guy named Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, a painter named Adolf Hitler.
It was like a room painter, right? It was like
because that's what he was at that time. And that was just one of those things. I love that big fat policeman guy, and like he has a heart attack when Einstein comes back to life, and then he's like wiggling on the ground.
Oh, that was good.
He's wiggling, and they're like, what do we do?
Like with there's the policeman who has like the really big nose, and like when one of the girls is like trying to take the helmet off, it gets stuck on the nose.
Yeah. The strap gets stuck on his big nose. That was, hey, they know how to use every one of these movies, this one especially, knows that they have funny-looking people, and they're going to use that. They're going to use that to their comedy of strength. So, like this guy's a big fat guy, we're going to use that. And not just as big fat guy jokes, but like, this guy's got a funny face. This guy's got a big nose. We're going to use that. We're going to fucking use that.
I know what the big nose guy, like, I saw him like, oh, that nose is so big. But the film's probably not going to, like, go, acknowledge that too much. It's just accentuated for the look. But then the strap gets stuck on the nose, and it's like I'm a fool.
Yeah, there's and to Sean's point, because Sean mentions some of this with movies he likes, but I think this is probably one of the more overtly horny one of the Czech films we've watched.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of horniness in this one.
The sequence where they go to the college campus, and like the head of the department has chopped his glasses coming out of the toilet, and then he grabs the lady's butt, and then he thinks it's one of his students.
Oh my god!
And he's like, I'm not going to change a grade for this or whatever it was.
And then she says that the lady should be wearing armor when you see her, and that was just absurd. And then the Tosway line of that he will be the head of education, like a minister of education in the future, and it's like, oh no.
This one's definitely the most horny. Maybe second might be like 4 Murders Are Enough, Darling, but I don't remember too much about that one.
But this had some horniness. The beginning of it, there's a whole scene at the beginning where we just see tits.
The film opens on like a porn shoot,
and then the rest of the movie plays coy with showing us tits. It's so weird. It's like the movie just shot its load at the beginning and then tried to play coy for the rest of it. Like,
it throws like it starts with like a very horny image right up top. And like literally, it's the first thing
hard
you see.
opens. Yeah,
and it was just like, oh, okay. Like it's the most like oh, all right, it's gonna be one of those kinds of movies.
I think the first frame is literally like them just lying down.
It's lying down. You got the beard, and there's barely any sound, and then they talk, and you're like, oh, it's very disarming, the opening, because they take a while to explain the beards and it's this whole thing.
They throw all of the weirdest parts of this movie. They throw a lot of them at you right at the beginning.
It's front loaded with the weird. Yeah, you can't. The film kind of doesn't. The film wants you to play catch up almost.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when it goes back in time, it kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say it normalizes, but like, it's like, oh, okay, this is like a setting that you're a little more familiar with. So it's like, okay, I see. They're doing a little more of the time travel. Even though the beginning of them travel with where the ship just shows up on stage and they're like, what the hell's going on? Did like the script change? What's happening? And then they have to have all the whole cast like move the thing off. That was good. That was very funny.
Yeah, because history-wise, it still had the certain showdown, but in real life, that got scrapped and this show got put on instead. So her intel was right, but it was wrong. And they yelled at her and treated her like inferior because she's a dumb woman. And then the movie proceeds to say, well, fuck you and your sexism, because she's got to help save the day in her own way. But I mean, I adored her very much as a character, a historian. They did the typical thing you see often in these stories as well. Star Trek's done this a bunch as well, where the history lady falls in love and wants to be. This is literally the plot of the Star Trek episode Space Seed, where Khan first shows up. Where it's like the historian falls in love with Khan. I definitely got some Star Trek vibes.
And definitely in terms of like the setting and all that, yes.
And yet this character, she switches sides. Like, she gets kidnapped, which is an amazing sequence, by the way, where we open up and she screams before anything happens, and you see this guy with the stocking over his face, this Robbie Coltrane looking motherfucker. He sprays her in the face with some mist, and then wraps her up in a cake, like in a. Like,
he like shoots her with like a thing that ties her up,
and he specifically says he asked me to do it for you in cotton because it's nicer. And it's like, okay. But the effect of when he shoots the gun that has this thing
like
in
stop
it.
motion.
Oh yeah, they like speed. They speed it up a little bit. Yeah.
And it's probably like reverse photography, right? Like they've probably had it tied on.
Oh, that's maybe.
And then they wound it up inside of the gun, and then they've reversed it. That's my guess.
I thought it was more stop motion-y, like reversed.
I don't know, but it was great.
It was something
effect.
like that, yeah.
And then you have one of my favorite gags. These movies, I feel, have made me aware of this gag, which is there's a body there, like she's in this position where she's tied up, and the person just grabs her and carries her like a suitcase out of the room.
Oh yeah,
that was a
That's like in
laugh.
Lemonade Joe where he like carried him like a statue.
Yeah, that's
but it was like
exactly
a really light statue.
And with the shot compositions, the color palette, it's actually quite difficult to see that it's a dummy. It's like, oh, that actually looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. For you, Sean, this being your first time, what were some of the moments that you got a good reaction out of? The highlights or the particularly funny moments, or a moment that made you laugh real good?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, like kind of like I mentioned, I really like the stuff just with the when they show up like on stage and they have to kind of like funnel everyone out. I like some of the nonsense with the guy meeting his father, who is a little boy,
a bad little boy.
That was a bad. He's like a rambunctious little boy,
and he's the scene with the gun.
Oh god!
Oh my god! Yeah, they're just like they give him a gun. And he's like kind of pointing it at the both of them, and they keep kind of like shoving it away and pointing it at the other one.
None of them are acknowledging it, but it's like their hands are the only ones acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're kind of just nudging him. It's like very light. That was really fun. I really like that. It was just like it was so weird. Like just to like the image of just like this grown man grabbing a little boy and being like, my father, just being really weird. Like he's being really touchy-feely with
sitting him on his lap, kissing him,
making
oh my god, like, what the fuck are you doing?
The lead scientist calling him dad and then going, oh sorry, I mean
yeah,
because he got so funny. Caught up in the conversation.
That was good. And then they kill that kid. It was very funny. It was like, yeah, oh, he's dead. Like, oops.
Yeah, it's only in the second timeline.
Oh man.
Yeah. And then they fixed it, kind of. They you know.
Mm.
They gave him a lolly for not going on.
A lollipop. I liked when she made him promise to have 4 kids, and then the kid became an adult in that one moment and said, like, that would be a tough life. That was very good.
A lot of like the snappy, funny lines were from that kid, really.
He was great.
He was funny. Yeah.
He was Einstein's like little protege, and he was doing all the maths.
Oh yeah, he was like a human calculator. Or whatever.
Yeah, and that makes sense for why his son is like a Nobel Prize winning scientist. Like that's again, that's the level of detail that they've put in, because they could have easily just had it be he is a kid that lives on the campus because his dad's the janitor. And that would have been enough. But no, they put in that extra effort to make it make sense and to help this Peck character, who's barely in the movie after a certain point, help him have a fully rounded character where we even understand his lineage and like how he got to this point and like why he is this way. This is the stuff that I really like to sink my teeth into. But I mean, one of the big laughs I did have, I mean, we've already mentioned the cat, but anytime the cat is in his suit jacket, clawing its way out, and he grabs it and smacks its head and puts it back in, and then it immediately comes back out again. The most nail-biting material was the way that actor handles animals. It's not just the cat, but the dog as well. Like, that guy was pretty handsy with these animals. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty solid grab of the neck there from that guy on that cat. Hope that cat's okay. And then he was shoved into a tube.
Oh. I was just being like, oh, the kitty. I hope the kitty's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, that had
a very small,
such a good payoff.
You're lucky we didn't recommend Bad Boy Bobby to you. It was a very tiny cat. It was such a I don't know what type of cat that was. I'm not a cat breed
not sure
connoisseur, but it was
definitely a kitten, but I'm not sure. Yeah,
it was kind of caramel to me with a blackish tail, but
well, it's Egyptian. It's Cleopatra.
It's Cleopatra. But I adored the cat. And I mean, that payoff with the antenna coming out of its back, and it's got all these records.
Oh my god, that was so
moments.
good. That was such a like a little like 60s sci-fi tech little thing. I love those little like that, like the little antennas. Obviously, the thing that I've seen people mention a lot about this movie is that there's a little like selfie stick kind of thing at the beginning.
Yeah,
that was crazy. They got that right.
It was Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, I really like those things that you see in older movies sometimes where it's like, they get it right mostly, but there's just like one little detail about it that is like, you know, obviously like one aspect of it they couldn't have anticipated. And with the little selfie stick, it's like, oh yeah, the picture, it looks mostly like that, like what a selfie stick would look like. But the part they couldn't anticipate was like digital, like the photo being like in the cloud or whatever.
But
Like there was like a physical
but they
photograph.
needed it to be physical for the plot.
Yeah,
because then they could show it off.
Yeah. And like it makes sense. Like it looks great. Like I really like how they do it. It's very charming.
Yeah. I mean, another good laugh moment for me was during the big hijinks scene of them trying to kill Einstein that first time when it doesn't go right and they kill the kid by mistake. You have this moment of there's a table covered with nails and they get one of the waiters or like one of the butlers to move it, and he grabs it and he's trying to go through this door, and then he accidentally slips and all of these nails go into the fishbowl, and then they grab the fishbowl and put it on the table and start serving it like it's water to people.
Oh my god, that was so like, I was just like, oh no.
And then our main character looks at it and is like, what is this? And then he accepts that this is what it is and he starts drinking it like it's just nothing. And that there was just a piece of hilarity that I just could not get past. And that rich lady character was, I loved her. She reminds me of Miriam Margolyes a lot. Like if Miriam played that role, like it's basically her characters from Blackadder. That over the top, shrill, I need this done now. And that character, oh my god, every line she had was gold. And she had this funny gag I liked where she had one of those veils over the face. And yet she still was trying to use her her glasses on the what do you call those exactly? The ones on the stick.
Yeah, I don't know.
But her bifocals, and she's still trying to use those, and she's trying to get it under the net so she can see. And there's just lots of struggle for her with that, and yet she still keeps doing it throughout the story.
There's a lot of gags about her naivete, her gullibility. Yeah.
For you, Bartek, what was some of the standout moments, funny moments for you? Anything?
She was a really good one, for sure. The cops, like I said, all the cops were great. A lot of the people in the future, especially when you just have, these people, they're somewhat acting normally, but they have like either women with the beards, talking about like, oh, we don't want to shave, or later on the men with the fake breasts, and they have
women's voices dubbed over them.
There's just, even though you could tell it was dubbed, there was a level of believability to it.
Because all of the actors physically changed the way they played their character as well. It wasn't just that they had tits and then they were just acting like they were before. They were more I guess feminine in their approach to things. So the voice coming out of them felt less bizarre.
I was going to say, but the physicality and also the vocal performance itself like really worked well together, especially since objectively, it's two different people doing the work.
Yeah, that was a moment, and I remember for you last episode, you were talking to me afterwards about like that was the thing you really remembered as well, was the men with the tits and the women with the beards, and so obviously that's a sticking point when you come back to it, because
it's the conflict.
It's arresting visual imagery as well. Like you just can't get past that, because when they go back to 1911, you're like, oh, normal time, I guess. Where we're hanging out with Einstein. That's more normal than the weird 1993 land they live in. Oh God, Einstein. And I like the running gag that he's a shit violinist, and even when he's great, he still breaks the string, and he still looks at it confused. He can't figure it out.
Like in the scene with the pervy teacher, he came and was like, do you have a spare G string?
Yeah. I also liked the bit where they were all pretending to be like staff to work at the house, and you had the real staff that were tied up in that one room, and they paid those actual handymen to like dispose of this guy and there. No, don't stress about those two other people in there. They've already been taken care of, and they're like, fine, whatever. We're just working class guys.
And they were paying him the handyman a lot, even though they were like going to shit on them over the phone. It's like, it's fine, you're paying me a lot.
You buy a new boss.
You buy a new boss.
And then, thank you, Mr. Banker. That was great.
I think the very beginning of when when they went back in time the second time when they were on stage and they had to like go across the stage, but they had to pretend they were also acting, and there's very clearly like them trying to work out what to do. At one point, two men were like dancing with each other. It's like, well, I don't have anyone else to dance with.
The main guy leans against the tree and it almost falls over.
They were doing a lot of these like little skippy movements, like, oh, I'm dancing, I guess.
One of the gags I truly adored, because again, their follow through on it. They freak out about the bear at the back of the stage. And then that one guy doesn't freak out because he actually knows the performance. He's like, no, that's this. And then he just walks off. Like that was great.
That's the bear's name, yeah.
Yeah. Like this guy actually knows the performance and knows the ins and out of it. So he isn't surprised and he's a bit annoyed that they're reacting so strongly to this.
The line leading into it was good. To like, oh, we know what to expect and nothing's going to freak us out.
Oh, and it's a bear. That was great. That was a real moment. I mean, we've got a lot of characters, big and small, one-scene wonders and our mainstays. Who was your go-to for this one, Bartek? Was there anyone in particular other than that lady, the rich lady? Was there anyone else? Because obviously you liked her a lot.
Was there one in particular in this film? That's a really tough one. Because usually the answer is like, oh, it's the Milos Kopecky character, but no,
I
wasn't
loved
in it. He was great.
He had a great mustache.
He was great. And this time, because I knew it was a minor role, I could appreciate it for like, what little time he was there, because it was like the end of both time travel visits.
Yeah, when they tried to stop him going into his own salon, and he's just like, let me in there. And then the police come in, and he's like, arrest them, they won't let me in.
It's hard to say with this one. It was real like ensemble effort.
I liked Peck's wife in this, especially when they let her in on the time travel shenanigans and how much fun she was actively having. There was that moment when she took off her bun in her hair and used it as a phone, which, by the way, isn't that like a gag in Spaceballs? No, that's right, they're headphones. She's in Spaceballs, her layer buns are headphones. But in this, I liked her a lot, especially when she was having to battle against the historian lady when they were both being the maids and stuff, and just how much they don't like each other.
Oh yeah,
and I thought she was a really her disguise when she was in the past was being a blind lady, and yet she's clearly not blind, and she's like eating food and chatting to people, and she grabs out of her stole a gun, and he's like, "What is this? A gun, of course." I mean, just truly one of the greats, because she at the start comes in and we have the selfie stick scene. She comes in as just over-the-top wife character. I love you, I love you, I love you. The love of my life. I'm rich.
No, you got to give me the second kiss on the other cheek.
Giddy, and I trip over. Literally, she like slips over when we meet her because she's going up the ramp and she slips over. She's very klutzy. And then when we meet her in the new timeline, she comes across almost very, promiscuous and over the top in a different way. But once they actually let her be a part of the team and do the time travel mission, not only was she having fun, but she became pretty competent as the story went along, which is a thing that I found to be endearing about that character. Was she changed a lot during the movie, not just because of the time travel variants of herself, but when she came back in the final timeline and she remembered the husband, but he didn't remember her, and she was like educating him. She seems so happy, but in a different way to how the original timeline wife was. And so that there, I don't know, I forgot about her. And then when I was watching it, I was making my notes. I kept writing so many notes about her character, and that actress is just clearly having fun. The lipstick on the thigh and her like almost orgasming over that, and them chasing each other on that very weird bed and rolling around all over the place.
Yeah, she has that gigantic bed, and it's so
the one with the lumps.
So weird.
It's like the size of a battlefield.
My God.
And you have obviously the strip scene we talked about, and just how she clearly is the one who knows how to be more sexy than the historian lady. And like, I like that detail because obviously this new variant of her is a bit more slutty in that way. So she just naturally fell into that. And then the other chick is trying to mimic what she's doing. That's great. Like that stuff there. Even though that scene is weird. That's a weird scene. The strip scene.
It is. Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere and it goes away.
And it's not I wouldn't necessarily call it short. Like, it goes on for a little bit. Like, it's a fairly extended strip
it was
scene.
like a parody of sexploitation.
Yeah.
Yes, it very much felt like, I was gonna say earlier, like this movie is horny in a very like 60s movie way. It's like,
it just felt like it was we're just fucking with you right now.
We're taking a bit of time off to be horny. Like, a lot of...
We're not going to pat these people down.
All
We're
right.
going to make them do stripteases. And when the fat one stripteases, there's going to be a tuba.
Because
oh my god, yeah, that was... Jesus Christ. I was like, come on, man.
Now, Sean, I know we live in an enlightened... I know we live in an enlightened society. You know what? I found it funny. I'm sorry, I'm laughing right now. But
my only complaint about it is I wanted to see gags with our main character because he was also stripping, but he was like not in any shots until the very end.
That's true.
Yes, yeah.
I didn't even fully realize he was in the scene because it was
it was the three women and him. They were the ones who...
And obviously the rich lady reacting a lot, going like, oh, it's like, you asked, you helped make this happen. What did you want?
Even the police officer was covering his eyes with the
because
stocking.
it was so much. Sean, for you, were there any particular characters or actors in this that you gravitated towards or enjoyed what they were getting up to?
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, I liked the professor's wife, who was just kind of like, she was very like, that was a fun role because I think what I liked about her too is that, like, even when they change the past and her husband is dead and she doesn't even remember that he exists anymore, she's still kind of like along for the ride, in terms of being like, oh, okay, well, if I had a husband, yeah, let's go bring him back to life or whatever. Like, there's this very, like, again, like, playing with, it's this kind of serious, this time travel stuff has pretty serious implications, but they're just kind of having fun with it. Honestly, I like the guy who played Einstein. I thought he was very like reserved. Like, he had the most reserved part. Everyone else was so wacky that he was comparably like very, very reserved. And with the exception of like he would just have like little moments of weirdness, like the way he would kind of like giggle in kind of a weird way, like, which was very like weird. And I liked that they just kind of would have like him and the historian lady like kind of doing like making like googly eyes at each other, or like doing like the romantic stare in certain scenes and that sort of thing.
She said she found a razor.
Yeah. Well, that whole razor thing where it was just like, oh my god, she's trying to commit suicide. And it's like, no.
But how would he know? It was very weird.
She's just trying to shave her beard. She grew her beard. Her beard suddenly grew.
And it was a blonde one because she's blonde.
And Milos Kopecki comes in and is like, oh, is she dead?
She did. He handled that very casually for it being his house, by the way.
Well, no, because the glass got broken.
Did you know that cost money?
That cost money.
They basically treat death in this movie in a very cavalier way. It's very... everyone's just like, oh, well...
They want a kid to shoot a guy.
They want...
Yeah, they were trying to get a kid to murder somebody.
They want... They brought up the idea of killing Hitler.
I know. An arrestable offense.
Who would do that?
An arrestable offense.
In 1911.
Can we just talk about the twists and turns that this takes in ways of the time travel? So we get to, they think they've killed Einstein. It's like, we did it. We killed Einstein. This was successful. We did it. And they play it seriously too. The title drop of the movie is played with absolute gravitas from that actor. He's like, I killed
really
Einstein.
Liked that. I was so happy when he just dropped the line exactly. I was like, oh, perfect, great.
And it wasn't
fantastic.
And it wasn't silly. Like, you could tell like he felt bad about it. Like, oh my god, I actually did it. I actually killed Einstein, gentlemen. And they don't understand. These people from the past don't get it. They just know that he was a man, but obviously we all understand. And I remember, even now on this watch, I was actually caught up in it. I actually thought, wow, they killed Einstein. Wow, they actually did it. Like, this is a kind of a sadder fate for it all, but this is a movie where they do treat death in a cavalier fashion and matter of fact. So they could kill Einstein properly, and that could be an ending to the movie. That could be a way you do this.
Was the timeline where the men were women, was that the same timeline where Einstein was a violinist?
Yes. So what happens is Einstein's not actually dead. He's alive. He no longer practices physics, marries the historian, and he becomes a concert violinist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
she basically convinces him to become a violinist instead
So
of
they could have read I Killed Einstein, gentlemen, as you killed a musician?
yeah, but and even then, some of them didn't even know what he was talking about because why would you? Because when you say I killed Albert Einstein, we in the world we know is like Einstein is like an iconic figure, not just in science but just in general, like one of the great names of history. But like a classically trained, well, like performing violinist is not comparable to that. Like you can't match that. Like no one's going to be like, I killed Andre Rieu, and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's bad.
I was trying to remember his name to bring up the example, but then you did, yeah.
But it's not I killed Hitler or Einstein or Stalin or like, you know, we could go on.
I killed Kanye West, gentlemen.
Yeah, Oppenheimer or something like that. Einstein's like a different figure. Like, you know, in terms of just the pitch of this, the title, I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen, Einstein to me, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like to me, with how pop culture has treated him and like gone through it, there's a part of me that almost forgets like he was a real life guy that did real life history because he's been churned, like they've churned him through the machinery of entertainment so much that the idea of Einstein is this real distorted thing now where I think of him with the big hair and the big mustache and the goofy accent.
It's like how he looks at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the version that you would get in something like TNG where it's like, let's talk to Albert Einstein, the hologram, and he'll help save the day. Like he's always synonymous with basically the guy that is the smartest ever and he would have all the answers to everything ever.
And also, and his name is also used as like a put down, like, oh, good job, Einstein.
Yeah, and is synonymous with genius. And so
yes,
the pitch of this being, let's kill Albert Einstein. Well, you already have a movie there. You're like, that's the movie. And so I was a sucker. I actually thought, wow, they killed Einstein. They're playing it seriously. And so when he comes back to life and the guy flops on the ground and starts twitching, I'm like, no, this is the movie I've been watching. Thank you for coming back to what you've always been.
I like the scene where I think it was Gwen, the historian lady, like talks to Einstein. She's like, oh, and then she mentions like E equals MC squared. Does that make sense? And Einstein's like, no, I don't get it.
Yeah, he was like, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. It kind of felt like, you know, maybe us normies who might not understand exactly what it means either was like, oh, we're in Einstein's shoes.
And then he laments the fact that this random woman, could figure out things he's been trying to for years, and he might as well just throw in the towel.
Yeah, he's like, wow, I suck at this. I don't understand. I don't understand physics at all.
He didn't go on the journey to
I should just give up. And she's like, yeah, you should. Give it up. Just play your violin, buddy.
And it's funny because earlier she said he sucks and will never be good at violin. So it's also kind of a twisted thing to do on her part. Like she's fallen in love, but she's motivating him to do something that she thinks he sucks at forever. And then by the end, we find out he becomes accomplished. But
well, he still makes a mistake.
Yeah, he still fucks up, but he's still an accomplished violinist. Hence, he's there at the end. But we get to the future again, and things are different. Things are a little bit more formal, too. Like, it's less wacky looking in the future a little bit, like less gaudy looking set design, a little bit more stripped back. And yet, what is insane is what's happened to men, where we've touched upon it, where now in this timeline, instead of the G-bomb, instead of people using physics to fuck with women's biology and physiology and all of that, now it's chemistry and it's gases and it's affecting men. And that means we're going to go extinct soon because there's no way to breed and populate, because men are slowly becoming women. They're getting breasts and the voices, and sex drive is down and all of this stuff. And I mean, what was your reaction to that, Sean? Because the movie, you know, it's been going on a bit. We've done the titular I Killed Einstein, gentlemen. Oh no, he's alive. That obviously means the timeline's going to be different. But what was your reaction and your overall thoughts on how this movie decided, let's see what time would be like if Einstein lived, but just a different lifestyle? What did you think of it?
I liked it. I enjoyed. I liked the the little twist of him just being alive, but having just taken a different career path. I thought that was cute. And I liked his little performance. I thought that was kind of just like a cute little moment. And yeah, it was interesting. Like it just kept like they basically it felt like every time they kind of have to go back to the 1993, they have to kind of like dial up. It almost becomes like a little bit stranger every single time. And it's just like the whole. I really liked. I did enjoy how they kind of didn't really. They really treated it just kind of like, oh, we're here in the future now. Like literally everything is different. Like what they have to go back to is just absolutely nobody even very few people left even know who these people are that were like traveling back in time. So it's like, what are they even really coming back to? Like, what is this even entirely?
And then there's also the sort of like counterpoint to that where it's like, even though we are changing a lot of things in the past that drastically alter the future, a lot of the same people do still end up in the same place.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of the people end up in the same place. They have similar relationships, but they're just like a little bit off in some kind of way. But I did like that. I thought I thought that was cute. The whole thing with just Einstein being like, oh, he's alive, but he's a violinist now, and then they have like he thinks he sees the historian lady again, but it's her daughter instead. That was fun, and it's like, oh, she got together with Einstein. They got married. It's beautiful.
Well, for a time, it's beautiful because time decides, no, that's you. Things are fucked. Because I was explaining this a bit to Bartek. Bartek, you mentioned that you're not the biggest science fiction aficionado. Time travel stuff isn't always your bag, baby.
Oh, time travel I actually do like, but sci-fi in general isn't really what I go to.
But we see oftentimes in time travel stories that people who try to mess with time, it doesn't work out well for them because time will want to rewrite itself or fix the course, or you get the butterfly effect, bootstrap paradox. All of this stuff is here. And you see how that gets fiddled with in many different stories. Back to the Future has its rules. I mean, Avengers had its rules.
Sands of Time.
Sands of Time, yeah. And yeah, that's a great example, Sands of Time.
We had a big discussion about time travel rules in that episode, yeah.
Oh, yeah, in the Prince of Persia movie, yes. Yeah. The game, but...
I've never seen the... When did the Prince of Persia movie come
2005, I want to say.
2010, I was in year 11.
Oh, 2010, it was even later.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
interesting.
There's always different ways.
Is that movie any good?
It's weird. It's weird. Okay, brief detour. In Prince of Persia, Sands of Time movie, the pitch is Ben Kingsley's his evil uncle, I do believe.
Spoiler, Ryan.
And he wants to travel back in time, similar to this. Travel back in time to
Jake
a moment.
Gyllenhaal is the
star.
star.
Yeah. Don't. Let's not get it. And Alfred Molina's in the movie too.
He's great.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's a pitch of Ben Kingsley wants to go back in time and do a similar thing where there was a moment where his brother could have died, but he saved him. It was like a split-second decision, and he wants to go back in time. And this is quantum leap rules where it's like you travel back in your own body. So it's like you travel back to when
you're literally rewinding the world, I believe. So
yes.
It's not like you time travel to the spot you're currently in when you start.
But he makes it specific that he will have the memories of adult Ben Kingsley.
You remember the stuff when you use the thing. But
so his plan is he'll go back to when he was 8 years old and kill his brother and then become king. But the question we had was, like, the movie didn't make it explicitly clear, but will Ben Kingsley then live his entire life with the mental capacity of like a 60-year-old man? Because he's old, and it was very weird. But with this, it made me think of Star Trek Voyager with Year of Hell, where in the episode Year of Hell, Kurtwood Smith is the villain and he's trying to save his wife. But every time he rewrites history or like does something, it won't let him save his wife. It will find a new way to fuck him over. And he even says that time is a harsh mistress. It has moods. And I've pissed it off. And that's what this made me think of, where our heroes want to save society. They want to stop this weird meddling with the women or with the men, and every time they do it, time says no, I'm just going to do it in a different way. Like, you just keep trying to screw this, I'm going to keep screwing with you. It's that real approach to time travel where at the end, he just stays in this version of time, finds a way to figure out this problem in chemistry, and he's now heralded as this great scientist, the savior of humanity. He is a concert for you. And it's Einstein, this harbinger of time itself, saying, see, you didn't change everything. Like, he is something that you didn't succeed at. You tried to kill him, and guess what? We wouldn't let you.
Yeah, the film doesn't really acknowledge it, I don't think, but if they went back to 1911 and it's set in 1993, that means that Einstein, as we knew him in the past, lived 82 more years just to kind of, have that thing happen.
He's very old.
And the same with the historian, too.
He'd be pretty old, yeah.
If he was at least 20, he'd be over 100.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, but he's very old, and he comes in as this, like, hey, you didn't do nothing, right? And so our main guy faints over this. He's very disturbed. And then they have that conversation at the end with the daughter and the historian and Albert Einstein, and she tells him to move out of the way of the chandelier. It falls, almost kills him, and she, like last time, knew how history would play out. Just knew that this would be. And for a comedy movie, it ends on I think a rather like somber note of like history is just going to keep trying to course correct itself to make sure humanity gets fucked.
Maybe the new pandemic was delayed.
And that this guy has now made himself the new Albert Einstein figure. And if that's the case, that means somewhere down the line, history, like society is going to get fucked up from his new science of physics. Right? Because that's what happened in the first place. Albert Einstein helped make physics a thing. Then it made society fall apart later. Now this guy's helped bring physics back into the world to solve this chemistry problem, and chandelier falls on him and almost kills him. Time's repeating itself, but now you're Einstein.
Maybe they should have gone back and killed some iconic, like, terrorist.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
Oh no, it's not the war on terror anymore. It's the war on...
But the war on terror happened after this movie.
I know.
I'm sorry.
What's the most iconic terrorist thing that happened in 1970? I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's a few we could go with. But overall, I recommend I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen, especially if you're wanting an easy entry point into Czech movies. This one's fairly simple to follow. It's got good filmmaking. It's in standard like color, because I know that sometimes when we recommend Lemonade Joe, it can be a lot because of its tinting that it has, but this is just shot in color. It's got some good performances, some interesting time travel rules, and it has a good amount of comedic set pieces. Like, we didn't go over it too much, but like the actual set piece where they try and kill Einstein properly with the chandelier and all the changing of the chandeliers, and this guy puts on the thing with the
clumsy
chandelier.
Waiter changing things around.
Yeah, and
the kid wanting to sit on the nice chair.
The glue on the seat, and the guy has the material stuck to his shoes because he still puts his shoes on. All of that is fantastic. So I do recommend I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen, if you can find a copy of it. It's a bit hard to find with English subtitles, but we found one, and it's available in places. But yeah, with any of these Czech movies, or even just foreign movies from a certain time period, you have to do a bit of the legwork for it. But every now and then they do put these on YouTube. Somebody uploads Lemonade Joe or A Dinner for Odell, or some of them on YouTube. So even keep an eye out there. Maybe it'll pop up on there one day. Who knows? Biotech, what about you? I Killed Einstein, Gentlemen.
I recommend this film, gentlemen, and ladies, and
horses,
and men with breasts and ladies with beards. It's a good one. It's got a lot of clever and unique things to it. And I agree with the entry point thing with the Czech film's a good one to start with. Because I especially think especially with like the Ulrich Lipsky stuff we've seen, they get a bit better with, the other ones. This one's still very good. Like I said, a lot of unique elements to it. Worth checking out. Definite recommend.
Sean, would you recommend this?
Yeah, I would. It's a fun time if you're just looking for I would say it's like a time travel comedy, but it doesn't. It follows some of the tropes that you would kind of expect it to, and that like a lot of more modern movies would. But it goes down some roads that you would absolutely not expect at all, and has like a very weird but very kind of like silly and funny tone to it. So it's a good time. So yeah, if you can find it, if you have a taste for that kind of a movie, and for some sci-fi in that era, 60s, 70s, I think you'll have a good time.
There you go. Now, Sean, you were going to recommend a movie for Bartek and I to cover on the next episode of this podcast, and I don't know what it is. Bartek doesn't know what you've got pitched our way, so it's time for you to lob it at us. What are we going to be checking out next time?
Okay, and I'm pretty sure I double-checked. I don't think this is one that you've covered before.
Okay.
Stop me if it is. I apologize if it is, but I don't think so. So this is a movie called Son of the White Mare.
Okay.
It's a Hungarian movie. It's a Hungarian animated fantasy movie from 1981. And it is gorgeous and extremely strange because it is based on a Hungarian folktale.
Nice.
The Hungarian name is I'll probably pronounce it wrong, but Feherlofia.
Okay.
That's a Hungarian name, so look it up. It is. I think I will be very curious to hear how you feel about it. I think you'll have a good time in that it is. It's an extremely interesting and beautiful. Like it's one of the most gorgeous animated movies I've ever seen. But it is deeply weird. So I think you'll have a good time.
Animated films. I made it a personal thing at the start of the year to hopefully do more animated films on the podcast and just watch more. Hence, we did. What was the movie again? A Town Called Panic.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for recommending that. Everyone will have the episode out at some point. We'll track down the movie. I don't know where exactly it's available for people, but it sounds like it's got some renown to it, so it should be out there. And I'll make sure to put
shouldn't be too hard to find. I don't think.
And I'll make sure to put the title of it all in the description. Everyone, make sure to check it out for yourselves during in the meantime, because it's fun. You know, watch these movies, hear your opinions on them as well. Any of the crazy shit we throw your way, you can throw our way too. You can hit us up on social medias, Facebook and Twitter, or email us directly at spitandpolished@gmail.com with your recommendations. We have a list of our listening people's recommendations. We have a few that I'm very keen to get to. We recently just did a Bollywood pick from Bartek, and we also have another Bollywood movie in there from our listeners. So throw stuff our way if we have the ability to find it and watch it. We'll do our best to cover it, because there are some we're still tracking down copies of to watch. I still want to watch some of these Polish movies that are just hard to find English translations for. But we'll get there. Sean, thank you so much for coming on finally. We've had your other two hosts from the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast on here, and now we finally got you on the pod. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and I would love to come on again, and we could watch more of strange European films. I would love to do that. It would be a delight.
And then I just crack open, and then I just give him a really fucked up Australian film just to change up the.
You know what? I go for it. I would love it. I throw him at.
Well, you've already name dropped Bad Boy Bubby, Ryan.
I don't think Sean could handle Bad Boy Bubby. Sean likes cats too much.
But he likes weird stuff.
He does like weird stuff.
I can deal with if there are animals that are hurt in the movie. I can handle it. It's not my favorite thing. I don't go seeking it out, but I can handle it.
Remember, he said that.
Yeah,
we will. If only it was hurt. So Bad Boy Bubby, what a film. But no, we're not watching Bad Boy Bubby yet, although it is weirdly available on Australian Netflix right next to Muriel's Wedding. Oh man, what a weird double feature that would be. But Sean, you can be found on where in the internet?
Oh sure. So mostly on Twitter. Like, you can follow me. I'm at Jabroni Sean on Twitter. My comic Red Ring of Death. I mostly post that on Twitter, but also I have a website for it. So it's RROD_comic on Twitter. And then on the website, you can find the archive of it is just redring-nation.com. And then the Last Best Babylon 5 podcast. That's like at LastBestB5. That's on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can find us all, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, basically anywhere you can find podcasts to listen to.
Yeah, Bartek, you've watched Babylon 5 now, so you can listen to their show and laugh at Sean and Steve for not knowing things that will come up in the future. They don't know about...
There's still a good amount we don't know.
Well,
we know most things now, but still a lot we don't know, so it's going to be fun.
Well, they're going to get a lecture about Masako Nozawa, and then they'll be the fools. Wait, we talked about them before the recording, didn't we?
Yeah, we were talking about anime before the record.
That's okay.
I messed up.
That's okay.
I guess I have
the real heads out there.
If only there was some sort of method to go previous in clocks.
Time travel. Let's get into a rocket and go onto stage.
The most normal form of time travel.
Bartek Tricker and the clock travel.
I did like that their time travel machine didn't require a physical machine. It could just be whatever they needed it to be at the time.
Yeah,
it could be a car.
Matter. It was like,
It could be a car if they wanted to. Like, it was anything they wanted it to be. I like that.
Yeah, there was actually a film in the 80s about a car that time travels, and it also had a plot about like a photo that he brings back to the past.
Oh my, are you insinuating? Are you saying Zemeckis himself watched this movie and ripped it off?
Wow.
And it was called The Polar Express.
I knew it. I knew it was The Polar Express.
That explains the weirdness. I always think about Terry Gilliam remade one of these Czech movies. He did the Baron von Munchausen. He did that movie, which is a famous Czech movie with Milos Kopecky as the Baron himself, and where you get the famous image of him being hit by a cannonball and flying through the air until he goes all the way into space. That's a great movie. That is one of the Czech movies I've watched that's more serious, and it's mainly silent. It's like you get some dialogue, you get some weird... one thing we didn't mention, got to wrap this before we go. Every time they opened a door, it made a weird sci-fi zoom zing sound, and I laughed a lot. Like every time they opened up one of the future doors, it would make this weird electronic sound, and it made me giggle each time because it was motivated. At least in some of the other films, I would have these weird zing 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 sound effects, and it didn't have any motivation. It would just be like a Dinner for Adele. He would throw a bowling ball out the window, and it would make a weird electronic zing sound. It's like, why did it do that? But here it made sense, and I giggled because it made sense this time.
This film had something for the sci-fi people and for the religious crowd because one of the police officers started praying.
Thank you, God.
Well, he was saying bye to God, I guess, because God was flying away, but it wasn't actually God. It was the main character. I think his name was Moore.
More! Yeah, it was, because there was this one scene where he just yelled out his name to Einstein. He just said, More!
Professor David Moore.
There you go. And thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, remember to be kind to each other, or else we'll go back in time and kill Einstein.
The actor's last name is Slovak. That's pretty on the nose. It's like if your name was like Ryan Ozzy.
If only.
Oh, wait, hold on. The guy that played the guy who stopped existing because his father died, the actor's last name is Lipski. Is he related to Ulrich Lipski?
Maybe it's a common Czech name, and you shouldn't Czech shame.
Well, it's not Czech shaming, it's Czech interest. Oh, he died in 2015.
Bartek's now on the IMDb.
The brother of director Ulrich Lipski, so I was right.
So that's why they look so much alike.
I don't know what Ulrich Lipski looks
like.
Ulrich
Lipski looks like that, but bald. Like balding with glasses.
He doesn't have a Wikipedia.
He looks like a Russian accountant.